Hello, this is Todd Luck, and Crom may not answer prayers, but Titan Comics does. I know when I heard that Titan Comics was going to be putting out Conan, and I found out they also do magazines, that I'm probably not the only one who was doing the math in my head, right? Conan Comics, magazines. What happens when we put these two things together? We, of course, get Savage Sword of Conan. And Titan Comics has announced that they are bringing back Savage Sword of Conan next year in its original black and white magazine format. They announced this at San Diego Comic-Con, and I imagine after that, they probably just dropped the mic and left the building, because what more is there to say? Now, they have announced that there's going to be a slew of creators doing different stories for the magazine, and that's great. I'm sure they're all going to do a good job on it, but I was kind of curious about the format, right? All they said was that they were going to use the old black and white magazine format of the original. And so why don't we take a look and see what that means? What was the original Savage Sword of Conan, the long-running black and white fantasy magazine from Marvel Comics like? Now, this is an issue of the original series. It's in a bag and board you can get at your local comic shop. These are 8.5 by 11 magazine bags and boards, and there are even boxes if you have enough of those. Right now, my magazines are on my bookshelf, but if I have a bunch more, who knows, maybe I will get a box. So Savage Sword had painted covers. That was one of the big draws. You can look around me to see just all the really beautiful painted covers you would get every month. The magazine featured black and white artwork that sometimes was just line art, sometimes it would have gray tones to it, and it would be printed on newsprint paper. Speaking from experience both personally and professionally, the cost of printing has gone down significantly in the last couple decades, and so that's one of the reasons why it's so rare to see things printed on newsprint in black and white anymore. That's why, most of your comic books are color, because it doesn't cost that much more to do it with a nicer paper and color. However, we do know that this is going to be in black and white for the new magazine. Perhaps they'll use newsprint as well. I believe it's still used on things like manga, so it's not like it's unheard of. And it would definitely have that authentic feel to it if they did use newsprint. So Savage Sword was a magazine, so it was definitely thicker than your average comic. And it actually had 64 pages of story every issue. And so that meant that every issue had multiple stories in it. You would have an extra length main story, and then the rest of the magazine might have articles related to Conan or Robert E. Howard characters. It would almost certainly have a backup story or multiple backup stories that would be shorter than the main story. And if they needed to fill space, you would get pinups by various artists. And it would even include the Swords and Scrolls letter column that would, of course, have letters from readers, and would also have sometimes Roy Thomas giving us an editorial, giving us some extra insight into the story that we read. Savage Sword would contain stories that were both self-contained in that particular issue and stories that would continue into the next issue or sometimes continue across several issues. The backup stories and features would sometimes involve other Robert E. Howard characters like Cole, Solomon Kane, and Red Sonja. Now, Red Sonja is probably not an option for this new Savage Sword because Dynamite is putting out comics of her, but they have the rights at Titan Comics for all of the other Robert E. Howard properties, and so obviously Cole and Solomon Kane are on the table, as well as a whole slew of other characters. And so that is an overview of the original Savage Sword of Conan. Now, I'm not sure how much or how little of that will be in the new version, but there's also the big question, how much does a modern version of Savage Sword of Conan cost? So I just happened to pick up a couple issues of Frank Miller's Ronin Book 2 last week, and so that is a black and white comic that is 56 pages an issue, and it costs $7.99 an issue. Now, that's a comic book. Magazines also tend to be pretty expensive. Like for instance, this is $15, but this is a oversized magazine, and this is definitely at the higher end of what a magazine costs. When I was looking at the shelf at my local grocery store, you know, I was seeing a lot that were somewhere around 10 bucks, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Now, none of those examples exactly apply to Savage Sword. It's a magazine and not a comic, and it is going to be a black and white magazine and not a color magazine, and it's probably going to be shorter than your average magazine, which is typically around 100 pages. And so my question is, are you already interested in buying a monthly black and white magazine of Conan? If not, what would make you want to do that? And how much are you willing to pay? So for me personally, I actually didn't get the magazine on a regular basis back when it was coming out. And honestly, I can't tell you why. I do know I stumbled upon 2 issues when I was younger. This was my first issue, and this is really neat. This was Roy Thomas adapting a story by Tennessee Williams, basically putting Conan in the place of the heroes that Williams had in the story, which was really cool. And then I also managed to find this issue with Conan teaming up with Solomon Kane. For the most part, I love both of those issues, and I'm not quite sure why I didn't have my comic shop add that to my pull list. Maybe I didn't think I could because it was a magazine, or maybe I didn't want to collect it because it was a magazine. It wasn't exactly going to fit in my comic box. I'm not sure. As you can probably tell by looking around me, I did start to eventually get some out of back issue boxes that I would see at comic shops and comic book shows and things like that. And the way I collected it is a little bit random. So when I was growing up, I had a few issues of the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe magazine, and these incredible covers and posters inside were done by an artist named Earl Norem. And so Earl Norem, I found out, actually was a Conan artist who did a ton of covers for Savage Sword. And so I would just collect his covers, which is a completely random way to collect the magazine. I got both Savage Sword issues and also Conan Saga issues that featured his covers. But it's probably a testament to how strong the magazine was that I would tend to find something good on the interiors, even with just a random issue here and there. I also have a few other odds and ends, including a few issues of the successor to Savage Sword, which was Conan the Savage. And I got these because the artwork inside is really amazing. So these are actually pretty cool magazines. So speaking personally, I will definitely be picking up the first issue of Savage Sword of Conan, because, I mean, my God, how many times do you get to do that, right? As far as collecting it goes, what would draw me in is the backup stories with different characters, right? Marvel did a lot of amazing stuff with Solomon Kane, especially in Savage Sword, right? And Cole is my favorite Robert E. Howard character. So put those 2 in there, I'm probably in. And I'm not going to worry too much about the price. I'm to a point in my life where I'm fortunate enough that I could probably afford an expensive magazine. Hopefully we'll be pleasantly surprised by the price, right? Maybe it'll be like abnormally low. I would love to see it just be like $6 or something, but we'll see. All right, that's it. So next weekend is the big one, Conan the Barbarian #1 from Titan Comics. I'll be reviewing that, hopefully, and maybe some other Sword and Sorcery #1s that are supposed to come out next week too. We'll see. Like and subscribe for more videos. And until next time, see ya.